we do have Ben White, who's a journalist and author from Cambridge, is joining us via Skype. Ben, good to talk to you. Contextualize this for me. How much of a political player within Israel, among the Palestinian community who are citizens of Israel, how much of a political player is that northern branch of the Islamic movement?
Yeah, so the northern branch of the Islamic movement exists because of the split in the 90s that took place within the Islamic movement more generally inside Israel. It is a strong, powerful, influential social, cultural, political organization. Its members certainly number in the thousands, but according to research done by an academic at Haifa University, the number of Palestinian citizens of Israel who express a degree of support for its activities and aims is more like 40% of the population.
I'm looking at the statement from the Prime Minister's office in Israel. They say the northern branch of the Islamic movement has for years led a deceitful campaign of incitement under the title Al-Aqsa is in danger, falsely accusing Israel of intending to harm the mosque and deviate from the status quo. And they also call the northern branch a separatist, racist group that does not recognize the institutions of the State of Israel, denies its right to exist, and calls for replacing it with an Islamic caliphate in its place. Is any of that wrong?
Well, what the Israeli government is frustrated about is that the Islamic movement's focus on protesting Israeli violations in Jerusalem and specifically in Al-Aqsa have been quite effective. And in terms of the concerns felt by Palestinians in numerous factions or none, the facts have shown over the years that the number of visits into the Al-Aqsa compound by far-right Jewish groups and the number of restricted days of access for Palestinian worshippers, both of those have increased in parallel to each other. So in terms of the Israeli government's claim that the Islamic movement has been propagating quote-unquote myths, actually they are reacting to policies on the ground that don't just relate to Al-Aqsa either, but relate to the advance of the settler movement in other areas of occupied East Jerusalem, and of course, you can't take away the broader context of the systematic discrimination experienced by those Palestinian citizens of Israel.
Talking about banning of hate speech and incitement, if they're going to go down this route, is there any likelihood that the likes of the chief rabbi of the Israeli settlement of Kiryat Arba, Dov Lior, who basically said the French deserved what they got in Paris because of the Holocaust and other such incendiary things, is there any likelihood that that kind of rabbi will also be banned?
Well, the outlawing of the Islamic movement that has taken place is clearly a political move. And part of the evidence for that is the fact that Israel's domestic intelligence services, the Shin Bet, actually has opposed the outlawing of the Islamic movement. They expressed that last year and also more recently. And the inconsistency that you've just highlighted with regards to who is gone after for quote-unquote incitement is another indication of the way in which this is a politicized act of repression of Palestinian activism. I mean, there's a number of groups that operate within far-right Jewish circles, like Lahava, for example, that campaign specifically against intermarriage between Jews and Palestinians, and also something like the Temple Institute, which campaigns to have a third Jewish temple built in the place of the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Now, that institute is actually funded. Its activities are funded by different branches of the Israeli government itself. So while somebody like the Zionist Union, the Israeli opposition, today praised the outlawing of the Islamic movement, but at the same time urged the Israeli government to take steps against some of those far-right Jewish groups, it remains to be seen, of course, whether, in fact, it is consistently applied, because the record shows that that does not generally take place.
Ben, thanks for taking the time. Ben White joining us via Skype from Cambridge.